and I believe this is being recorded. It's going to be accessible later and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, my watch says 12:58.
You're wrong. No, I'm kidding. I'm going off of the one that I have here. Oh, you are right, but my computer says 2. How weird. My iPhone says 1:58. You know, those 2 minutes. Now I'm going to go off of the phone, Daniel.
Thank you.
1 minute.
I miss you, mujer.
I miss you too. It's good to see everyone. It's good to see these faces. For those of you who I know, hi Ajay, and those who I don't. Nico, hi. Great. I need a stage manager for my life. They're magic. Almost. Going off of the Jaquez time. Is this a West Coast thing?
I don't know. I've just been here 3 years.
All right. Now my iPhone says 2 p.m. or my time, 2 p.m. For those of you who are just joining us, hello. It's 2 p.m. my time because I am in El Paso, Texas, the border city of El Paso, Texas, right across the river from Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, my native city where I was born, although I was not raised there. I was born in Ciudad Juárez, but I was raised in central Mexico, in Zacatecas capital, and spent the rest of my time basically as a border straddler, just having one foot acá y el otro allá, as a bilingual, bicultural, bisexual, by anything you can imagine, including buying, B-U-Y. And I am here now. I am a visiting professor of practice at the University of Texas at El Paso. I have been for the last 8 months, coming to 9 months, and I will continue in that position for the next academic year. But I've been living in Manhattan for the last 8 years prior to coming here, and hopefully hope to return once Manhattan is a place to return to. But Manhattan in my heart, and New York in my heart in these weird times. So for those of you who don't know me, I just told you a little bit about my topography. I usually like to introduce myself to people by saying, hi, I'm Georgina. I am from the high deserts, because I believe that introducing ourselves by the things that surround us and where we grew up really says a lot about us, I think, especially as artists. My partner tells a story that she met a woman once that she asked her, where are you from? Which is a very American thing, right? Where are you from? And she was in Norway or something at the time. And the woman said, I am from the sea. So anyway, I encourage that. And if we were in face-to-face right now, I would have us happily go around the room and introduce ourselves in that way, so that there starts to be some sort of organic placement with your land and the people that came before it and that could have inhabited at any point in time, and sort of create a connection to that in a way that is organic, and remove ourselves from the fact that we are from somewhere, rather we are cradled by the things that are around us. So I'm a playwright. I have been writing for, I don't know, ever. I didn't know I was a playwright, but when I was 7 years old, my mother passed away, and shortly after, I was in Zacatecas, Chihuahua at the time. Shortly after, I watched the movie Bambi, and I was so pissed. Can I say cuss words in this live? Well, I'll try to keep it PG. I was really mad. I was really upset at the story, because I was like, how can it be possible that nobody talks to Bambi about the death of his mom? Like, nobody addresses this. This is problematic. Oh, I can swear. Great. So fantastic. Fucking fantastic. So I was really upset about the fact that nobody talked to Bambi about mama dying. So I rewrote it. So I rewrote it as a mode of healing, as I'm sure you heard also from CQ's last week, playwriting as healing. I didn't know that's what it was doing, but I know that I needed to address things that weren't necessarily addressed in the cartoon in a way that felt real for me. And so I rewrote Bambi, whereas Bambi's friends, including Flower and Thumper, address it and talk to Bambi about it. I also cast it, costumed it, and put it up, because I was 7 and obsessed. So that's really where I like to say that my playwriting journey started. I didn't realize it then, but I realized that for me, writing was something that I needed to address within myself, something that wasn't fitting in my puzzle as how I was interpreting the world around me. And instead of trying to question why the world around me wasn't fitting my piece of the puzzle, I was trying to work that puzzle out in me to see how it could fit the world. And I found that words and images, for that matter, I also draw and paint, were the way to get those answers for myself without being angry at a society that didn't give them to me at the time that I needed them, how I wanted them. So it was yay from the mountains. Hey, Texas, Bay Area. So that's really how my journey started and how it has continued. Now, being a person from the border, of course, when I went to grad school, it was at the University of New Mexico, go Lobos. Wait. I was sort of asked about why I wasn't writing about the women on the border, why I wasn't writing about the border, about the narcos, about the violence in my native city of Ciudad Juarez. Being a member of one of the founding families of that city and being part of a legacy that helped to build it and help to nurture it, it seemed hypocritical for me to then dedicate any words to narrate the violence that destroyed it. I am a big proponent and a believer of realization through repetition. And I believe that the narratives that I want to put on stage, I'm not saying that's for everybody, are those realities that I want to see realized. And so for me, the violence is not something I wanted to see realized. And so therefore I didn't want to give them the power of enchantment and summon them and give them any more space than they already occupy in our real world. So with that, I think very quickly, I realized that my tendencies to write, if you want to call it a genre, it's not really that for me, but was not going to be in this trope of trauma as drama. Rather, I wanted to go more into obviously speculative fiction, which to me sounds redundant anyway, but speculative nonetheless. I was much more attracted to the what ifs. I did a summer intensive at the Stella Adler Conservatory of Acting back in 2000 and studied with Betsy Parrish, who's amazing, and was really drawn to the Adler method, though not exactly acting, and I quickly left that. But what I loved about it was obviously Nudahagen too, but the idea of what ifs and the idea of like surroundings and outside in and that kind of stuff, so I think ultimately influenced my writing as well. So I really went on that instinct to formulate the things that I wanted to write about. And the things that I wanted to write about were things that I didn't have the answers to, or that I didn't know the why of, or the what if resulting. I didn't want to reinforce things that I already knew. I never feel like I have something to say. I feel like I have some curiosity about something and I don't know, which is why I write. So I write from a place of unknowing and I embrace the mystery and I embrace the unknown, which is why I've chosen this sort of genre called sci-fem. Instead of fi, which is, science fiction, which came out of a time of future shock. Now we are in present shock. And to me, that calls a balance or an investigation of the balance and the disbalance. And to me, that's inherently feminist. So I'm still investigating, obviously, what that means. I keep writing on it. And so that's where you're coming into, okay? I don't have any sort of golden compass or a key that will guide you to write the best play of your life or anything like that. It's just like everybody else that's been sharing with these. It's just like, this is kind of what I play with, how I do it. And if it works for you, go ahead, because if you're anything like me, you're writing 10 things at once to just sort of get things out. Writing and typing are two different things. And I think writing happens every day, at all moments in conversation. And so this is just a little warm-up tool that I like to share, that I literally just kind of came up with this morning based on self-exploration and seeing like what would get me to start a new spec fiction play, or what would get me to start a new sci-fem play, what has started that. So with that, that's my 10 minutes of intros, basically. If you need to know more about me, if you have more questions about anything that I've just said, because I went through it very quickly, that's what the last part of this conversation is for. But I want to get you writing a little bit. So you are going to need a few things, a few tools. I'm all about the tangible. I mean, if we were, again, in real time, I would hand out the papers and the pens and all that stuff. But I am going to ask you to please have handy 2 blank pieces of paper. We are going to longhand 2 blank pieces of paper. Oh, this is weird because it's backwards. Anyway. So 2 pieces of paper, please. If you have a book, any book, don't think about it, don't worry about it. Anything that has text, just grab it, have it handy, okay? So a book, 2 pieces of paper, your pen, of course, or pencil, marker, Crayola, whatever you want to write with. And what I want to experiment with you for the first time ever, I've never used this kind of worksheet, I call it the Sci-Fem Spark worksheet. I just called it, I just named it. It's borrowed, you know, everything percolates from other stuff, but this is kind of specifically, I think, what launched me into creating the Then They Forgot About the Rest sweep and the Arcadian Shepherd trilogy. So I wanted to share that with you. So your piece of paper, here we go. This is where I'm going to go a little bit quickly. So if there's questions, just dump them on the side and I'll address them. But you basically want to get your first piece of paper and split it like this. So 2 at the top, like basically split it in half, and then the top half, split that in halves, so that you have 3 panels. I'm all about the panels. Graphic noveling is my passion. So you're going to label panel A, panel B, and panel C. Panel C being the one that takes up the bottom half of your page. Panel A and panel B at the top. Cool. That's going to be our first sheet. Once that is labeled, just put it aside, and you're going to be doing the same with your second. I did it on the back of mine just because I wanted to save paper, but you can do it in your second piece of paper. You're going to do the exact same thing. Def, D-E-F. So A through F should just be these sort of 6 panels right there. They're going to be our working space. I really believe that the way we limit our space, the plasticity of the page, like Paula calls it, how things land on a page can also inform the way we create a play and the way the harmony of the play comes out. So there's your 2 panels. If you did it one in the back of the other and you have an extra piece of paper or an index card or wherever, this is just mostly for you to have. Don't laugh, this is real. This is the G spot. Don't laugh. But it is, look, G spot, it's a G spot. This is your key. Listen, this is Sci-Fem. So that's gonna be what we're gonna figure out as a concept seed. That's what's gonna generate the seed for your new play that you're gonna write today. No, you're not gonna write today, you're just gonna have a seed today, hopefully. All right, so here we go. And I am gonna time these, so we're gonna get strict, 2 minutes for each, and I will talk to you through. So the first panel, your A panel, okay, is going to be titled The Fears. And you're gonna number them 1 through 5. And these are the fears, like I am afraid. What is fear? The fears. You're gonna number 1 to 5. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to write down. Don't think about it. That's the whole point. 5 fears, major fears you have right now, this moment in general. Write 5 fears. These are for you only. And 2 minutes, go. One minute. Seconds. Okay, and that's time. Great. Let me go back to this. Awesome, cool. So now the second panel, panel B, you're only gonna get 1 minute for this because it's about not putting your mind first. This is something that I encountered with La Maestra Josefina Lopez, where she just wants you to do things. I mean, she's not the only one, but she's brilliant at just wanting to get things on the page. So just do it. Do not think about it twice. Don't scratch things out. And the second panel is going to just be words that percolate, words or images that percolate from one of those fears. So circle one of those fears instinctively, whichever one calls out, and start dumping one word things that are about that come to mind. And 1 minute, go. Images or one word of what percolates. Seconds. And that's time. Awesome, thanks for playing. Great, let that sort of shake out of you a little bit. It's good to get that energy off your fingers. And for C, this is what you want to do. You're gonna take your book, right? Whatever book. I have Cuatlique Girl by Gris Munoz. I hope she's here. Great book, get it. She's from El Paso. and just open it to any page, okay? And the first line that pops out at you, just whatever line, don't think about it, even if it's just 2 words, whatever, grab it, take it from the universe, borrow it, and put it on the top right before, right below your C. So on the top of C panel, write that line. Just borrow it directly from the book, borrow it from the universe. It speaks out to you. And once you have that quote from the book, look at it. It's always good to sort of revisit our panels. Our brain works, most of the time, the way the panels land is that we read them from left to right and under. So do a sweep like that of your words. And your challenge for panel C is to now try to get some conflict in there. And so you're going to have character A, character B. Don't think too much about it. Just A, B, back and forth. And they are confronting whatever your fear is in A, whatever you chose in A, by using words from panel B. And that's just what you're experimenting with. Minimal words. Their issue is what's on A, but their language is what's on B. And you will have 3 minutes to just A, B, try to fit as much of it as you can in that little space that you have, and go. Again, if you have questions, you can throw them at me on the side. Hello, Lee Country, Pennsylvania. Hmm.
So sorry, Georgina, we have 2 questions from the chat. Quick recap of the assignment, please, and how do we use the quote from the book?
Just use it as inspiration for one of the lines that you will drop into your text. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Question. The recap of the assignment is really to get 3 panels, A, B, and C, and one you will put your fears, 5 fears, 1 through 5. Second, you'll have 1 word responses to that fear 1 that you select from panel A. And panel C is diving into dialogue where the characters confront the fear from A using the words and the images that percolated in B. Let me stop the share.
"30 seconds. All right, that's time. Great, thank you for playing along. This will all be for you to use later. So again, I'm moving quickly because it's just about the energy, not, it's trying to get your mind out of the way and be a little bit out of your mind to tackle science femme or sci-femme. All right, on panel D, now you're in the next, for those of you who joined late, you will have 3 more panels, D, E, and F, split similarly, half, and then cut the top half in 2, like so, and you'll have, but it'll be D, E, F. So on panel D, now we're gonna go into the speculative part of it and the layers that start to make up your given for the world that you're creating. So the top of your D panel, you want to label impossible. Impossible. So label it impossible and also number it 1 to 5, similar to the fears. And this is just a suggestion. Try to start from weird to hopeful, okay? Birds can speak Spanish only. That's mine. I mean, you can use it, whatever. But so for 2 minutes, just write 5 impossible things. 5 impossible things from weird to hopeful. You have 2 minutes to do that. One minute. You can be as weird as you want with them. They're impossible things. That's the point, is to get your critic out of the way, not judge it. Thanks, Dave. All right. Great. Almost there, I swear. On your E panel, here we go. This is where it gets a little weird. On your E panel, you want to write plausible. Plausible. So impossible, plausible. Now the difference, I mean, it took me a while to gather what plausible was. You can make it whatever you want, but for me, it's really what is reasonably impossible. So there's a level of reason to your impossible. So you're basically taking the 5 impossible things and you're making them a little bit more reasonable. You're injecting them just a little dose of like, but what if, you know? So if it's birds can only speak Spanish, the way to make that plausible is if there was a magic pill. Like, it's not real. I mean, magic is, you know what I mean, but like, it's sort of adding to your impossibility to make it a what if, the plausible. If you want to abandon your impossibles, you can start over with plausible, but it's really just exercising a different part of the brain that allows you to go a step further with the impossible. So again, this one will be 1 minute, so it's less thinking. The plausible, the what ifs, or the reasonable impossible, and list 5 of those. All right. And that's time for that. Great. On our last panel, because then we'll go to our concept seed or our G-spot. So on F, first of all, now that you have these two columns, grab one or two, I would say one, but grab one that you just really you're gravitated to, like one that sticks out, like just organically makes you jump or giddy or excited or laugh or whatever, something that causes a reaction. Grab that one. Ask permission for that one to be the one that guides you. Circle that. And the next one's a little tricky in this type of setting, but it's what I like to call activating the pictorial or oral imagination, basically injecting, now that you've injected impossible, plausible, and now you're putting the abstract in there. And to me, images are inherently that, and so is sound in many ways. So in any other circumstance, you know, if you're doing this by yourself at home, this is where you would just put, you know, shuffle on your iTunes or whatever, and whatever song came up, you would force yourself to write to it for this F panel, or you would select an image that you are attracted to, that you gravitate towards. Because I've been doing a lot of walks here in the desert, I've been capturing snapshots from around me and been using that to see what happens if I center sort of my story with that image. So I'm just going to share those with you, but it's really your own exercise. The point of the F panel is to basically rewrite the text from C, whatever happened, whatever conflict was going on there, whatever juicy stuff was happening, but now you're going to transfer it to this universe that is being inspired by the impossible, by the plausible, and by whatever images you're feeling. So you're sort of just adding to the world and to the fluff of it. And the images that I have, like I said, are from here. I think you can hopefully see them. That's from my walk, Mission Hills. This is a tree trunk. I just love the texture of that. This is Sunset Heights. Don't worry, I'll put them all on the screen at once in a minute. It's a building in Sunset Heights. And this is a very typical area of El Paso that has the peñascos, but this is in miniature. And so here they are. So just, again, let them inspire you if they do. To me, this is, it's not something I'm going to write into my stage directions as like, you know, a place that looks like a tree trunk, that looks like a sponge. It just allows me to put my dialogue in a place where it doesn't really fit. So if I have my characters start speaking, but I know that their surrounding looks like that tree trunk, it's going to allow me to have them speak to each other in a different way. How do they sound in that space? So let the images sort of guide how these characters sound with the given circumstances now of the impossible and the plausible as part of their world. Again, it's just a warm up. So for the next and last 3 minutes, just let them speak, let them breathe into these worlds. We'll start the 3 minutes now, and also keep it A and B, just very simple. Hold on. You have a minute. Ten seconds. All right, and that's time. Great. Awesome. Cool. I love these messages. Great, guys. So, okay, so I don't necessarily ever do it disorganized for myself because my brain is crazy and weird, but this is now something that I'm going to do. What I what I actually do is create then the concept seed paper, which is the G spot I was talking to you about, that G with the circle. And what you want to do there is basically write up in the circle a play about A. So from your panel A, right? So a play about whatever you chose, one thing from panel A, a play about that in a world. Now we're in this world of voiceover, right? In a world where, and then you put there the things that came up in D and E. It can be messy. It doesn't have to make sense. This is yours. This is for your brain. It's not for anybody else to read. So it's a play about, for then I forgot about the rest. It was, because I actually did it to test it. And it was, you know, a play about losing a sister in a world where forgetting pills and walking deer exist. And then I usually attach an image, okay? I attach something that to me just, that's it. Like, and if you know, then they forgot about the rest. It was that image from Claudia Almedo with the girl hiding her face behind this deer face that just drove the writing for me. So then you have that, you create your concept seed that just says a play about A in a world where D and E, attach image, and then you have this one sheet that you tuck away and you put it in your, you know, pitch folder for yourself. And you can do this. I mean, we did it in 30 minutes, one a day. You end up with, you know, 365 of these, one of which might really excite you and drive you, or something that might keep repeating itself. And you go, you know what, I have a concept sheet about that I never thought would happen. Something about a virus. Maybe I should pull that out right now. So it's just giving you space to have things to create and a fun way to break out of your normal and create something that you might be excited about. So thanks for playing. Thanks for coming along. And now I would like to open it up for questions, concerns, whatever we want to share. We are stopping in 20 minutes. So if I like stop you mid-sentence when we're about to reach our end, please don't think that I'm being rude. We're just trying to be conscientious and respectful of your time and everybody's time. All right, cool. Thank you guys. So.
Hi, everybody. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to use the raise hand feature. To find that, you go down to participants, click on that. Either it'll pop right up or you'll see a little dot, dot, dot off to the side. And you can find it by clicking on that dot, dot, dot. If you're struggling, go ahead and message me, HowlRound, in the chat, and or toss your question in the chat, and we'll start there. I see our first hand. Juan Ramirez, you are unmuted.
Hello.
Cool.
Am I supposed to hear something?
Okay.
Might be taking a moment. Hold on, can we hear you? Ah, we can hear you, yeah.
Hey, Georgina, what's up?
Hey.
How you doing? This was really great, by the way. I already have something, and I'm like super excited. So I just want to say that. That's first.
Awesome.
But my question is like, how do you say one a day? And I'm very obsessive. So when you said that whole thing about like the obsession, I'm very like that too. So how do you tell yourself, all right, I got 10 of these things. It's getting out of hand now. I need to focus, and I need to do you have something? I know that's one of those. I don't know if you have. That's my really question. How do you stay focused with 10 ideas?
I have, okay, so these sketchbooks, this size sketchbook, my wife actually just sent them to me from New York. I must have about 50 of them.
Wow.
Full of everything like this. And just like before I moved here, so like 9 months ago, I started sort of indexing them, like being like things about women and abortion rights, and you know what I mean, like just sort of labeling them by theme. And then I just basically have an encyclopedia that I can turn to, you know, which is very helpful for commissions, because sometimes the theater will commission you and just be like, do you have anything about bleh? And then you're like, oh, actually, you know, I have these 3 concept seeds. So I don't necessarily feel the pressure of returning to them right away. I mean, I have so many, you know what I mean, that I just sort of store them, but at least they're out of my brain. But I do keep them in a notebook that I just recently started sort of indexing in my very messy way. I just basically put in the front page, like this has wayfoot and sweep and you know what I mean? And I kind of know where to go to. But I'm a firm believer, Juan, that like anything that we create, like once we've put it out there, our brain is basically already, like it owns it. It basically goes, I got it. I locked it in. Like once we put the actual magic of putting it down, like we don't forget it. It's not like it goes into the archive and then it's gone, you know?
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that. That's cool.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. I think Sean has one, but I don't know if I can unmute, but. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hey, Georgina, how are
Sean, you are unmuted.
Cool. So Georgina, I'm a huge fan of your play Stoneheart, and it's really made me want to, it really started a new passion of mine to like keep reading and advocating for revisionist Western plays. And I guess my question is, what's your history with that genre, and are there any other like well-known genres that you'd like to explore more in your plays?
The Western trope, you know, I'm from Chihuahua. The true, you know, the equivalent of the Texas cowboy is the same in northern Chihuahua. And my grandfather was a cattle rancher, and I grew up watching Giant and you know, all the Westerns, though from the corner of my eye, and all the rancheras mexicanas, which are similar, but also not. They're actually much more romantic, and it's weird. And they're like musicals. They have songs, you know. And so I think I just peripherally had it because of my family, and for me to invest. But I always found them charming, even though it was still like the typical hero. And I always found them to be like, they have a good message, kind of like the Disney ones where you can see the message coming from a mile away, but you're still like, oh, but I still watch it. So Disney's probably next, Disney princesses, but like Westerns for sure was just something that I wanted to try and tackle and deconstruct it. And I really took the time to understand what that meant for me. And I have a bunch of pictures that like brought me to what that meant. And it really has to do with the snake and the idea of the rattlesnake and what's dangerous, right? What's dangerous in Westerns and what's actually dangerous in real life. In Westerns, mostly the danger is coming from outside. You know what I mean? Somebody's imposing the train and the snake and in Stoneheart, it's taking those, but also making it about Birdie's mental illness. And it's actually the dangers coming from inside, you know? I hope that answered it. Cool.
Great, thanks so much. We have another question from Monica.
Hi, Monica.
Monica, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Georgina, this was great. Thank you so much. And Tlaloc, thank you for organizing this. I've been happy to be at all of these. I have a question. It's a little bit out of what we've been talking about, but I want to pick your professor brain in terms of teaching undergraduates at this point, or in general. I know one of the challenges that I'm working with in teaching playwriting is that many of my students do not have a tradition of seeing theater. And the default seems to be to go towards writing that kind of emulates television, sitcom, Disney, or movies and that kind of thing. So I'm constantly trying to think about ways to introduce what are the possibilities of the theater that only the theater can do, and to introduce that in a what are some pedagogical strategies for introducing the possibilities of the stage for many people who have not seen very many plays, or certainly a very limited kind of stylistic range.
Yeah, that's a good question, Monica. I think, I mean, you know, this teaching playwriting is two-part, because you obviously have to, you have to cover the algebra, right? You have to cover the architecture and the structure and all that stuff, because you have to know the rules before you break them. So that's its own thing. But as far as like then tackling what their like content and like what to access and what is theatrical and like what makes a story is to allow them the ability to abandon the idea of a perfect plot, perfect story, like perfection. I think in general, I always talk about the Latinx wabi-sabi, right? The imperfect, impermanent, and the incomplete as something to embrace the unknown. It helps a lot for me to have writing, having written for puppetry. Puppetry is a medium that honestly is only really, I mean, obviously there's puppetry in television as well, but you know, it's very alive. And so sometimes introducing warm-ups or generative, you know, workshops like this that are like about writing for puppets. And most importantly, allowing them to abandon the idea that characters have to be people. I think that really, really helps. Like a character does not have to be a person who has a voice, who has two eyes, you know? A character very well could be the house, you know? The character can be the rattlesnake, a character can be a vice. And so really understanding character from the function of the character standpoint and abandoning the idea that it has to be a person, I think allows to break some of those ideas. And then things like this, where you just sort of have them write 10 impossible things, you know, and say, you know, how do you justify that dramatically? Like, how do you still give Birds Can Talk as the argument a full dramatic 8-point structure method with fractals and everything that support it, you know? So write the impossible is usually a good exercise for them, and they fight it, but that fighting is good. It's the growing pains.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I don't see any raised hands at the moment, but Georgina, I would love to hear more about how you develop non-human characters as characters and what goes into that process.
I mean, I think it's not even a process. And I also don't like to dictate it in this text. Like, I don't like to say, this is a non-human character, but for example, in Sweep, there's a character called the Gretelgrot. And I have no idea how many people have done the production. How many people? No mames. There's only been like 2 productions, but you know what I mean? Like people that have read it or whatever, that like email me and they're like, what's a Gretelgrot? And I'm like, I have no fucking clue. That's the point. So it's actually assigning characteristics to characters, and leaving the artistic team and the artistic ensemble to answer. And that creates a lot of uncomfortable feelings as well. But it's creating what doesn't exist, right? And so it's, again, going with the impossible. So if a Greta got doesn't exist in our universe, how do you manifest it? How do you bring it to, how do you make it come to life and have presence on stage? Is it a stool? Is it a puppet? Is it a voice? You know, in Abigail's version in Georgia, it was literally a voice that was ran through different speakers. And so like you would open a file cabinet and the voice would come out, and that was the Gretel Grot. And then in the version in Chicago, it was literally like a miniature puppet that was attached to half of an actor's body. So yeah, it's kind of leaving it open and creating things that you don't have the answers to, and sort of making it the production's job to, I always put this at the top of my plays, you know, I say, be creative for our species' sake. That's all we have. You know, without creativity, we can't, definitely we can't find a vaccine, you know, if we don't imagine the impossible.
That's wonderful. All right, I'm seeing a bunch of questions pop up. So we're gonna go next to Danielle. Danielle, you should be unmuted.
Okay. Hey, Georgina,
Hi.
thank you.
Hola.
Hi, all the familiar faces. It's great to see you again. Mine is a technical. When you gave us an abstract to write on F panel, you said something about panel C, the AB. Did you mean, I know it's all whatever comes out, but was the original instruction to duplicate your original AB dialogue, or just create or follow through with that? Or technically,
Gotcha.
what would the rule would be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like I said, I literally woke up this morning because I've been writing a bunch of notes, like it's my style, and drawing pictures. And I was like, how am I gonna turn these doodles into this, what I wanted to do right now? So this panel thing just came up this morning. But that specific thing, my instinct with the F panel, Danielle, is actually, I think it was Brian Herrera. He can tell me if I'm wrong. Who once, when I was writing an essay, or probably my thesis, I don't remember, was like, rewrite it again from memory. And I was like, what, Brian? No, you know? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, do not like cut and paste, do not look back, like throw it away and rewrite it from history, from memory, because what percolates, what actually comes through from just what you remember is actually what you're trying to say, you know?
Whatever sticks.
Right, it's what sticks. And so like my purpose in creating that F panel was to basically what sticks, what was there, because that's the heart of it, right? And that way you're not looking back and trying to fix it and edit it as you're going, but it's whatever sort of comes out of it. So it's not so much a continuation of it, it's like redo it from memory.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go next to Nico. Nico, you are unmuted.
Hey, Georgina, thanks so
Hi,
much for
Nico.
giving your time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to ask the question, or at least I don't know if I'm going to be able to ask it how I want to, but I saw like a meme or some like Twitter say that no one should write about the coronavirus pandemic. Like it's like off limits, like no one should write about it. What do you think about dramatizing or making performance or doing these kinds of things about, you know, global pandemics? Or like, for example, I was in a play about a terrorist attack. So how do you feel about, because, you know, I have a background in science, so obviously I had some sort of idea with a virus that actually attacks viruses. So like, how appropriate is it to like start making work about our current situation?
Thank you for that. I think there's different schools of thought with that. I mean, it's something I talk about with my roommate as well. It's like, when is it are we too close to something to write about it objectively and that kind of thing? And I think in any other form of writing that might be true. And it is also true in playwriting. If you're living through something and you're writing about it, then it's writing it for a certain purpose. You're trying to work your way through it, right? And that it might be very well what you need to do with that piece. But if you're trying to write about it because you want to have some sort of understanding, perhaps a little bit of distance. It services your brain. It's really about how you process things. You know, are you the kind of person that, like when my mom died, my grandmother couldn't even bring up my mother's name for years. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing as how you process grief or loss. And I think saying you can't write about the pandemic right now might be coming from somebody who personally just doesn't know how to handle grief in the moment. And some people might be very well equipped to do it. So I think it's just, you know, playwriting is personal in that way. There's no right or wrong. It's just if that's what feels your instinct. Again, to me, it's all about like what you feel, that guttural feeling of like wanting to do something, you know, and it's not because you have something to say. I'm not saying that's not why people write, or maybe some people do write that way, but I know that I don't. Everything I have to say, hopefully we can have over a beer and, you know, face to face. I'm not going to make you sit in the theater, you know, for 2 hours and listen to what I have to say, hopefully, you know what I mean? So it's more about working through something and having questions with you. So yeah, I don't know if that answers it, but I don't think it's proper or improper or anything like that. I think it's just how you deal with it. Now, it might be a different story for producers who are like, we're not going to produce, you know, so many people are
producers,
like, yeah, but that's not your job at this moment. We're not when you're generating material. Thanks.
We have
Thank
5
you.
minutes, so time for about 1 or 2 more questions.
5 minutes, cool, last
next
2
up-
questions. Awesome.
Last 2 questions. We have Linda Mayo. Linda, you are unmuted.
Okay. Hi, Georgina. It's been wonderful what you've been doing. And because you have such a wonderful imagination, how do you edit that? Or I mean, when is that process of editing all of the ideas down? And do you find it difficult working in that kind of working with the imagination, and how do you hone it all in?
Yeah, great question. I'm still learning. I'm, you know, forever learning, because it depends also on the reason that it's so different is because you're writing with a team. You know, it's a collaborative art form. So as much as you're coming to the table with the questions of the world, you know, your team is also helping you sort of track things and be like, wait, that doesn't make sense, which happens to me a lot. People get very, very confused in the plays, but confusion is, you know, when we're confused about something, right? It's because we don't neatly have the answer to it. And that digging for the answer causes, it nos altera, you know, it like alters the spirit, because people don't want to feel lost, right? You don't want to be lost in the woods. And so imagination is not like, let it be lost, let it be let it be lost in the woods. And then in the rewriting process, you start to define the rules of the world, what makes sense. And that's when the architecture again starts to come in to sort of shape it, right? To sort of then create the landscape that is going to get you. But you have to throw all the elements to make the wood fantastical, you know what I mean? And then worry about crafting the road out of it. So for me, the first step is to really, you know, you need to sculpt something that has a lot of mass and sculpt away from it, right? So I don't limit myself as to the amount of stuff that's going on and the amount of stories until I can sculpt it through the rewriting process.
And you also, but you like to work with various people, because playwriting can be so like, you know, individual and kind of lonely and just in your own little world. Yeah, so it just sounds like you find people that you like to collaborate with. And
finding a director is key. I do direct a lot of my own work, but finding a director is key. And yes, I work very well with composers and designers. So if they can see the world, I can make the world happen. You know what I mean? Right. And so, yeah, it's basically just that. I think we're about 2 minutes to time.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm just checking in with HowlRound, right?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze this one last question in. Sean, thank you for waiting. You are unmuted.
Great. Yeah, and it's a quick question too. So, yeah, just who are the writers working right now that excite you?
All of you. No, I'm kidding. I don't know most of your work. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think the writers, and I'm being selfish, but it's a lot of the people that are in my community. So it's the plays that I've been reading, because I haven't been going to the theater since I've been in El Paso. Paula Vogel always excites me, and I'm not just saying that. I just think, you know, her even just being in the same room with her, I find writers that excite me, writers that are excited about writing. CQ, I'm not just saying that because she was before me. I love her to bits. You know, I think it's my Latinx people. I think especially the people from the border. I really love Andrew Ciañez de la O. I love his work. I think he's creating sci-fi as well, sci-fem. So I'm biased. I like those kinds of stories and those kinds of impossible worlds from a lot of my Latinx folk, especially from the border. Cool.
Thank you so much
Awesome.
for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you got something good out of it. All right. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks so much, Georgina. We'll see you all again next week.
La luz. Ciao.